Have you been thinking about taking your GMRS radio capabilities up a notch? In this video, we'll take a look at the DB25G GMRS radio from Radioddity. For many users, a GMRS handy-talkie will give them all the capability they need to deal with their GMRS communications needs. For some, however, mounting a more powerful unit in their vehicle or using it as a base station at home will add capability and enjoyment. The DB25G transceiver from Radioddity is one of those radios that many will find useful. As we get started, thanks for watching the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets that catch my eye. If you find this video useful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. I hope you'll also make use of the affiliate links below the video as a way to help support the channel. In full disclosure, I need to let you know that Radioddity provided this radio for the review. If you have looked at the various radios available on the Radioddity website, you've probably noticed three that appear to be pretty much the same. The models QB25, DB25, and the DB25G are all based on the same proven radio chassis. These radios are digital devices where most of the radio magic occurs on the chip. This allows the manufacturer to produce a single radio device that can be configured to do different things via the firmware on the chip. For example, I've reviewed the QB25 transceiver and I use it as my primary mobile ham radio, and its programming is very similar to this DB25G. What this means to you is that you can have some confidence that the DB25G is based on a proven design and that the hardware has lots of successful operating time. What's unique about the DB25 is that it's designed for GMRS use and has an FCC Part 95 certification. One of the things that separates the DB25 from other GMRS radios is the programming scheme that allows you to program a huge number of GMRS repeater channels, each with different CTCSS or DCS codes. The radio recognizes GMRS repeater frequencies and allows you to enter those into the open memory channels. The radio will then allow you to transmit on those channels. Many GMRS radios allow for several additional repeater channel banks that accomplish the same thing. But the DB25G is unique in that you can have dozens of channels for repeater channel 23, for example, each with a different CTCSS or DCS code. For many, that's overkill, but it's certainly an interesting approach to solving the same repeater channel, different code problem. The radio won't transmit on frequencies other than those assigned to GMRS channels. Another thing you might notice is that GMRS channels 8 through 14 are receive only. That's because those channels' half-watt power output limit is less than what this radio can provide. As you'll see in a moment, the CPS opens with those channels empty to avoid any inadvertent transmissions. Let's take a look at what comes with the radio and point out some additional features with the radio turned on. So here's the box that the DB25G comes in. It's not a very big box, but it's not a very big radio. So let's take a look at what's inside. First, there's an owner's manual, and it is It is pretty well done. It gives you some drawings. It gives you explanations of what the various screen displays are. And then it goes into the menus. And you'll probably want the menus with you as you go through this the first couple of times, because some of the things make sense and some of them, the abbreviations are a little odd. Here is a plastic bag that has some parts to it. It's got a fuse up here and then a variety of screws and so forth for you to mount both the radio to the mounting plate and then the mounting plate to wherever it is you're going to mount it. We've got the mounting bracket here. It really doesn't amount to much. It's metal. It has the large openings here so you can slide it left and right to get the right alignment for the situation you find yourself. And then it has a place to screw in the radio, and the other side allows you to provide some angle to this so that the display is pointing up at you. So that's the mounting bracket. The radio comes with a programming cable, and it's got a tip ring sleeve style data connector on this end and a USB-A here on this end. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at the microphone. It has a long coiled wire that you can keep it out of the way, but at the same time, reach and grab it. It's got an RG45 plug here that goes into the front of the radio itself. And then the microphone has got push to talk over here, and it's a fully enclosed push to talk button. It's a lightweight microphone, kind of plasticky, but at the same time, it fits in your hand quite well, so it'll work. It's got along the bottom some control buttons. These are basically the same buttons that are on the radio itself, so there's very little that you have to do on the radio. Most of it you can do from them in terms of programming. You can do from the microphone. The last thing we have in terms of accessories for the radio itself is this 12-volt style plug. It'll go into one of those round 12-volt accessory ports in your vehicle, or if you're using a power supply, it's easy to get a round style socket that you can connect to your power supply or power distribution block to make this easy to connect. It's got the white plastic connector that's going to go to the wire that comes from the radio, which is what we're going to look at next. So here is the radio itself. It's a very compact device. It's metal. The top of this also acts as a heat sink. There's a little warning here that it may be hot from when you're transmitting. Here's the wire and the white connector that plugs into the 12-volt connector that I just showed you. And then there's a fused line on the positive line. Now, this radio doesn't produce a lot of power. It's rated at 25 watts, which means that generally this radio is not going to pull a lot of power. So make sure you check your owner's manual for your vehicle. But for most modern vehicles, there's going to be plenty of amperage available at a 12-volt socket for you to use the 12-volt plug and power your radio. On the back of the radio is a plug for headphones or an external speaker. The little silver dot right here, or the silver hole right here, is for the data cable that I just showed you. There's a fan to generate some airflow through the radio when the thermostat senses the radio's gotten too hot. And then here is the SO239 connector that will connect to the antenna lead, which will need, of course, then a PL259 on this side. On the sides of the radio, you can see that we've got just the mounting sockets for the screws that will go into the mounting bracket. They're both on the left and the right. And then when we look at the top of the radio, we can see the on-off and volume. You press it on to turn it on and then twist it for volume. The button over here has also got a twist for select and making menu choices, and you can twist this to increase and decrease the channel numbers when you've got those all set up. And then there are 5 buttons. The monitor button will basically break the squelch regardless of the squelch setting. FM will turn on the FM receiver that's included with this radio. VM is the VFO memory button that switches you between VFO and memory mode in the radio. Call button will initiate a call function, And then the exit and the ABCD button. Exit takes you out of the menu if you are in menu mode, and then the ABC button allows you to cycle through the 4 displays that are going to be on this screen. Now, speaking of the screen, let's go over and mount the radio and get it powered up so we can see how the menus work and what the screens look like. Okay, so here I have the DB25G plugged into a 12-volt power supply here up in my Radio Shack. And you can see that I've got the 4 different lines, each with different GMRS channels. And so let's take a look at what these buttons do and how all that works. And so here we've got the on-off button and volume. Press it to turn it on, twist it to change the volume. This button over here will get us into the menu mode by pressing it, and then we can move within the menu mode by twisting it. The FM button will put you into the FM radio receiver, and then you can use this dial to tune. Press it again to get out. The VM button will change from the VFO mode and to the channel or memory mode for whatever line you have highlighted. And so you can see here I have the top line highlighted. If I press this, I'm now in the VFO mode, and I can type in a frequency for one of those channels, go through the channel programming process for one of the many channels available here in this radio. Press it again, and I'll return to my channel mode and the channel that's selected there. Buried under here is a button that says exit, which will take you out of the menu mode, and it'll also the button that will allow you to change. So I'm going to come around here the other way and then hit ABCD. So you can see I moved to channel. Line number 2 is channel 4. Line number 3 is repeater channel 30. Line number 4 is GMRS channel 7. And so those are the various channels that I have selected. Now, when I've got one of these selected, if I want to change the channel, I just turn the dial and I can move between my various GMRS channels. So let's just do a quick look at the menus. And to do that, I'm going to be using the microphone to get in and out of that, simply so I don't have my hands in the way of this. So I'm going to start by getting into menu mode, which would be pressing this button here. And I'm going to press menu on the microphone. And so now I've got the transmitter power, and I can have that set. And so I can go up and move through my memories. Memory 6, memory 7, wide, narrow is wide. The brightness is 5. I'm going to go back down there and see that my microphone gain, I've got that set as 7. That's pretty handy. A lot of radios don't have microphone gain. And go back up, and so I can make all these changes. Now, if I wanted to make a change, when I've got that there, I can then press the menu button again, and I would be pressing this button here if I was programming on the radio. And now I've moved down to my wide narrow. If I wanted to go to narrow, I could press the up button on the microphone, or I could twist this knob here, and I want that to stay where it is. Now, to exit the menu mode, I would press the exit button, which is this button under here. My microphone, it says exit, and I've left the exit menu. So that's the operation side of the radio, and then how you would program the radio using the menu system on either the faceplate or using the microphone itself. Now let's hook up the radio to a power meter and see what you can expect from this radio. So we've got the radio connected to the power meter and transmitting into a dummy load right now. So let's see what we have in terms of power output for the radio. There are 3 choices: high, medium, and low. And so we're going to take a look at each of those here on the display to see what we get. I'm going to go up to GMRS channel 2, and GMRS channel 2 is in that 5-watt area. So we're going to go into menu. We've got the power set to mid. So we'll hit the push to talk again, going into a dummy load. Got 5 watts. To low, press to talk. Again, 5 watts. 5 watts is the lowest this radio is going to output. And so now we'll go into the transmitter power again, and we'll go up to high. Select that. And 5 watts. So the firmware is going to limit your radio to 5 watts in those 5-watt channels there at the low end of the GMRS channel listing. So now let's go up to the next one where we're in GMRS 19, and the watt limit there by regulation is 50 watts. So let's see what we have. So we'll go into menu again. We've got transmitter power is high. That's what we want. And so we'll broadcast there. We've got about 16, maybe 17 watts of power coming out of the radio there at high power setting. Change it to mid. We'll try it again. We got about 9.5 or 10 watts of power at the midpoint. So both high and mid will change power output in the channels where the maximum power will allow for it. And so again, we'll go into menu. Go to low, and now we've got right at 5 watts. The power output of the radio is pretty reasonable. Yes, it's listed as the peak of 25 watts. It comes in a little bit less than that, but it's very typical of radios of this nature, and the adjustability in that high channels of GMRS makes it very customizable for your particular need. Most GMRS users aren't going to spend a bunch of time changing settings on their radio once they get it configured the way they want it. While you can do the configuration using the microphone and/or faceplate buttons, it's just easier to use the CPS or customer programming software. Let's take a quick look at that process. So here I've got the DB25G CPS loaded, and you'll also notice that in the recording area, I have the device manager up for my computer. And what we want to do first is make sure that we know where the port is. So to talk to the radio, we'll have to select the right COM port. So here I've opened up the ports. I know that this chip on this programming cable is the Prolific chip. So I can see that the USB to serial COM port that's Prolific is on COM port 4. And so I'm going to keep that in mind as I move into the programming software itself. So when I open up the programming software, you can see it's very typical, and it's nearly identical to the QB25G, which is another radio based on this chassis. And so you can see we've got the Windows things, open, new, save as. To open the channel information, we click channel, which is this display right here. By clicking the options, we can open up the detailed options in the radio. We'll go back to that here in just a moment. The signal is if you're going to do any DTMF programming. Programming drop down is reading from or writing to the radio. Communications is where we select our port, and you remember we were on COM port 4, and this one is set to COM port 4. It found the correct one automatically, so I'm going to confirm that, and it'll close, and we'll get out of that. Now I have my radio turned on, and I have the programming cable connected to my computer, and so this is the default. And I want to point out something because I've been playing with this a little bit, and that is the channels 8 through 14 are empty in the default. And in a moment, you're going to see those get filled in when I download from the radio. But we want to make sure that they're narrow and low power, or just delete them, because I think the reason they're deleted here is because the radio can't put out only 1/2 watt. And that's the requirement for transmitting on that frequency in the GMRS band plan. So for those channels 8 through 14, the limit is 1/2 watts. So I'm going to delete those to match. You'll also see that we've got high power set in the default here and low power set in the default there. And I need low power here because those channels are limited to 5 watts in the GMRS channel plan. And so in this case, with this display open, I can actually go here and get it from the icon. I can go here and get it from the drop downs, or I can get it from here, get it right from the display itself. So now I'm reading the data. It's complete. And so here you can see I have all of my GMRS channels. You heard the little radio leave programming mode and go back into the standard operating mode. And so now I've got my channels through 130. And so with channels 31 going down through the rest of these, it'll recognize these repeater channels. And so I can put in multiple repeater channel frequencies down here with different CTCSS codes up here, which allow me to access a variety of repeaters that are on the same channel, but with different codes. So let's go back up here to the top and just give you a little bit of a demo of how this works. And so channel 1, you can see it's on high power, and that's not what we want. And so we want to go for low, and we're going to work our way through those channels that are low power. Channel 7 right there. We're going to be working on wide, and then 8 through 14, because low is going to give us this 5 watts and we're limited to less than that. I'm going to go through and delete those channels. Okay, so now I've got that done. I'm not going to add a frequency here. This is just a quick demo of the software, but you can see here that I've got places where I can do that. So here I've got the VHF, UHF drop down. I could type in my frequencies here and just add another channel. It's really easy to do. And then I'm going to scroll down here. So at the bottom of the list, we've got all of our weather channels. And so these are the NOAA channels. They're receive only, but we've got them all right there. They begin at channel 190. And so your area will have one of these that are active. Now, the other thing that we're going to look at here is we're going to go into our options menu. And that menu comes up and we can do the same thing. We can read from there, and so it'll read the registers from the options. And here we can make the changes to our radio. The radio beeped back at us. It said it's back in operating mode. And so here is the menu number 0, basically, and it gives you the variety of the multiple receives on those 4 channels that you can display on your radio. I'm going to work with this radio a little bit before I make my choices, because it can be a real pain to have all of these receiving at the same time, and you don't know what channel's coming in. So I'm going to leave it off for the time being, but those are the choices. You can check your squelch level. I want mine at 3, timeout timers at 60. I can put on my brightness. I've got that set for 5. The beep's on. I'm not going to mess with the DTMF stuff. And then the channel here, this is where you label what's coming up on your channel. And I've got each of them set as the channel number and the name. So it'll say, channel 1, and then it'll say GMRS 101 and so forth. And so if I had a name for a repeater that was different than repeater number 31, it would show that. And that comes from the name file here on the channel programming software display. So here's kind of a residual from this idea that this radio chassis is used for a number of different things. These I'm not going to worry about. Here is the other big thing that we have a lot of changes for. Again, these can be changed on the radio itself, but here you can make changes. So you've got the foreground color, the background color, the main foreground color, the main background color, menu background color, and so forth. There's just a whole bunch of different things that you can play around with until you get the display to something that you care about. So up here is the power on message. It just says welcome. I can use all these lines and type in another welcome message if I want it. Welcome is fine for me. The stat-free display is the area in the bottom of the radio display that normally shows the signal strength indicator. When it's not receiving or transmitting, it'll display the model number. Well, I'd like to put my call sign here, and so I'm going to type in WRKZ 231, which is my GMRS call sign. So now I've got that, and so now when I look down at my radio, I'm going to see WRKZ 231. So we've got all that ready to go, and I'm not going to mess with the color. So that's what we have here. So at this point, I've got all of the changes made that I want to make, and so I want to save this before I write it to the radio. And to save that, I'm just going to click on Save. And I'm going to go down here to where it says an asterisk and .dat, and I'm going to call it the 2021-10-18 optional, so OPT. That's the optional data here. And then I'm going to put it in a file in my folder on my computer where I have my ham radios, all of my little handy talkies separated. And so I'm going to put it in that file, the DB25G GMRS file, and so I'm going to hit confirm, and it's stored that information is now saved. And then next, with the optional features, I'm going to write it to the radio. So I'm going to press write, and you can see that it's writing the data. It wrote 31 blocks of data. There's the radio blink chirping at me that says that's done, and so now I'm done with the optional data. Here I'm going to write the channel data, and I'm going to save it first. So again, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to set my DB25G GMRS down here in the Save dialog box. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to call this 2021-10-18 channel. And a dot right there. And so I'm going to confirm that. It's store those parameters. So now I'm good there. So I have a backup that I can access if something goes wrong or if I want to make changes later. And so I'm going to write that to the radio. It's complete. The radio has chirped back at me, so I'm out of that. So I'm going to close this display, and that's what I'm going to do to finish up programming using the CPS. Now, let's jump outside and see what the radio looks like mounted in my Ford F-150. So here's the DB25G mounted in my Ford F-150. You can see I have the microphone just kind of coiled in the console, and then the radio itself is using a Cupholder style connector, which I find really handy. You can just pull it out of the recess for the cup and then just slide it right into the console if you want to keep it out of sight. Over on the right hand side, you can see coming out from under the console both the power and the antenna, which come from there through a little detent in this particular vehicle. And I've got it plugged into a switched 12-volt outlet in the console itself. If you haven't already, you may want to watch my Going Mobile video on this channel, where I discuss some of the things you want to keep in mind to get an inexpensive, temporary, no holes drilled kind of mobile installation in your vehicle, just like this one. So there you have it. Let's wrap this up with a couple of closing observations. First, I didn't do any range tests, as when you get to this output level, the radios are all about the same. Additionally, at this level, your antenna, which you'll purchase separately, has a big impact. The antenna's gain and where you mount it will impact range. Next, this radio's small size makes it easy to mount in a vehicle or on your desk or workbench. All in all, if you are looking for a mobile or base station GMRS transceiver, the DB25G from Radioddity is a good choice. Again, if you found this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to to the Gadget Talk channel. Click the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching.